just for sake of consistency, you'll be glad to know that I need to do another bottom bracket job. Hello again, YouTube. Well, another weekday evening and another bottom bracket job. So what we've got here is the bottom bracket from my Trek Roscoe 8 hardtail. Let me show you that bike. Okay, so anyway, I took it out for a ride the other day, having solved the tubeless issues that have plagued it for some time now, and it was evident on the return from the ride that the bottom bracket was shot. So I get to do another bottom bracket job. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but bottom brackets seem to be in particularly sparse supply at the moment, or the ones that I want seem to be. So the bike is fitted with a Truvative power spline, so it's SRAM power spline crankset, and the bottom bracket is a Truvative 6873. Now the bike's got 73mm shells on it, and so it needs a 73mm bottom bracket. So I made the mistake of ordering a 68 power spline, and when I looked at the two bottom brackets, the main difference between them is this threaded end, where basically on the one that was fitted to the bike, the 73mm, that collar there is probably about half as thick as this one particularly is, and this one is about 5mm thick, so I reckon it's about 2.5mm. Now the problem is, I cannot, for love nor money, get a 73mm power spline bottom bracket. A couple of people have got them, and like the ones that have got them in stock, they're quoting silly money. I mean, they're like 40-50 quid. So I, undeterred, thought, I wonder if there's a way that I can adapt these, because essentially the only difference between the two bottom brackets is this end, basically this threaded end here. So if you measure them, basically if that were 2.5mm there, you know, you'd have a 73mm bottom bracket. So it didn't faze me, because I had one of these ends already on the bottom bracket that I'd taken out of the bike. Incidentally, this is the bracket out of the bike. I did this job, didn't think it was going to work. It did work, and then thought, I wish I'd had a camera running. So I'm just kind of recreating it for you. So all I wanted to do was, that end comes off easily. That's the non-drive side. But to get the drive side end off, it's really easy. You're going to need a vise for this, and you're going to need a hammer. So just put it in the vise and snug the vise up, so that what you're doing is resting that flange, this flange, is resting on the jaws of the vise. And then remove the core of the bottom bracket. Okay, so if you imagine, if this had been my old bottom bracket, I've now salvaged the collar that I need to go on to the good bottom bracket, because if you look at these, I mean, the internals on both bottom brackets are absolutely identical. The ones that I had, or the one that I had, the only difference was that this collar was different. So fine. So now what I've got is a good core that I can fit the correct size collar to. And the way that I'm going to do that is, firstly, I'm just going to rest the bottom bracket kind of in the vise to give it some support. Now it's going to go onto this end, and the dead giveaway, if you forget which end this came off of, the dead giveaway would be the bearing under this drive side will be a lot cleaner than the bearing under the non-drive, or it was on mine, as you can see on this. So firstly, let's get that bearing let's get that cap down over the bearing. What I'm going to use for this is just a socket. So let's put that on. I'm going to get my precision hammer for this job, because you want to start this nice and square. Okay. Okay, so now I've got my cap down over the bearing and it's going down nice and square. I want to keep this cap going on nice and square, and I want to push it onto the shell of the cartridge bearing. You can see where the old cap was, so I want to push it down that far basically. Now you could do that by drifting it on, I guess, but if you've got a vise, the way that I did it is like this. So gently try and open the jaws up, okay, the jaws of the vise. Keep everything in line and then slip your cartridge bearing assembly in so that one jaw is bearing against the bearing, kaboom tish, is resting against the bearing on this end, and the other jaw is resting against the collar that you want to press on. So then, little squeeze, okay, moves a little bit. Loosen the vise, turn it. I'm going to turn it through 180 degrees, push the other side on. Okay, and again. And I'm just doing, as you can see, little increments here. Because I want it to go down as square as possible. Okay, we are now approaching what I think I would call a critical interface. Let me show you what I mean. So you can see that the shell has come down practically all the way over the bearing. So now it wants to press down onto the body of the cartridge bearing, the shell of it there. So what I'm going to do is just gently keep pressing this, and I'm going to use just a little bit more force. I'm going to be just a little bit rougher with this just to get it pressed down. Okay, it will kind of find its own centre to a certain degree once it starts going onto that body. Can't see anything with my hand there, can you? Okay, so let's give it just a little bit more. Okay, so we've got it located on one side. Turn it over. And locate it on the other. So you can now see that it's beginning to slip down over the casing. Okay, so let's just push it all the way home. And you can see where the high spots are, so that's where your next press needs to be effectively. That's getting a little bit harder, so I'm using just a little bit more force. I don't want to go crazy on it, but all the time I can still feel it progressing on. I'm going to do that. Right, that to me feels pretty much like it's home. So, there you go. There is your refurbished bottom bracket. So essentially, all I did was took my old bottom bracket. I needed the cup from that end to give it the right clearance in the frame. So I took the old bottom bracket, knocked that cup off basically, then took the core of the new bearing and pressed that, knocked the cup off that and pressed the right cup onto it. Now this will only work obviously if it's the same sort of bottom bracket. So basically your spindle length needs to be right, because all you're altering is the shell width with this. But essentially all you've done is swapped the shells from a bad core onto a good core. And that, to me, seems to make sense. The only thing I would say is before you put it back in your bike, do stick a label on it to say actually what size it is, because if it's not you that changes it next time, they're going to whip out this core and it's going to have the wrong size on it. So anyway, thanks for watching that. I hope you found that interesting. There's a lot more stuff coming out this week. The Damani is nearly complete, so there's going to be an update video coming out on that. But I thought I'd share this one because I'm becoming quite an expert on bottom brackets. Not by choice, but just my bike's making me do it. Anyway, thanks for watching YouTube. Catch you in the next one.